Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it is a great pleasure to speak in the debate today and to follow the honourable gentleman, the Right Honourable Member for Worcester and other colleagues today. I think there's going to be a debate. This is going to be a debate with a fair amount of consensus. And I think that the importance of sport in our communities and in schools, I think, has taken a really renewed focus through the pandemic and after the pandemic, with sport and physical activity being so important for well-being and mental and physical well-being that's so critical to all of us in our communities. I do just want to emphasise one of the points made in an earlier intervention about the importance of health and the health team being actively and prominently part of this debate and strategy, and a disappointment that a minister from the Department for Health is not here today. Could I also just, Madam Deputy Speaker, just thank organisations from my constituency, a lot of grassroots sports and football clubs, Bedfont Sports, Eagles, CB United, Hanworth Villa FC, but also our PE teachers. I think what we don't always talk about is the interface between confidence in physical activity in school and how it builds confidence to take part in physical activity outside of school. And indeed, it can work the other way around as well. My own story is one where I had friends at school that were involved in the local athletics club when I was growing up. Athletics and sport wasn't a big thing in my family. I suspect that's a common thing with families that haven't had a tradition of sport. But I started going to Feltham Athletics Club, which was the same place that Mo Farah trained a number of years before him. And it was interesting, Madam Deputy Speaker, the first time I went to an athletics meeting, I did not realise it was a place where you actually went to play sport and you actually had a competition. So I went to this first athletics meeting thinking it was going to be a meeting and we were all going to be sitting around, and as it was, because nobody else was really turned up and I had to take part in everything for Hounslow, it was probably the only time in my life I would have ever won, and I did win, medals and trophies for taking part in javelin and shot put. But it was one of those things where you don't know what you don't know until you have the confidence to take part and somebody walks through that journey with you. But I also just want to, I will very briefly give way.
She makes a really valid point then, and I think other members have said likewise. And can we all take this opportunity to pay tribute to key people within society, PE teachers and sports coaches, who are working day in and day out, and often they can be the only person that a young person feels comfortable working with and speaking to, and they are the inspiration that gets them through often some very difficult times.
Yeah. I thank my honourable friend for that point. Indeed, she's reminded me of the story of a young boy who was pretty much suicidal after the lockdown and the impact it had on his mental health, and the support and camaraderie that his local football club gave, and the coaches who became in loco parentis for them. But I do want to just also acknowledge the point made by the Honourable Member for Worcester about the link between physical activity and well-being and education attainment, and I think it's an area that really needs to be highlighted in the debate, and the purpose for which we have a sports strategy at all as well. But let me just make a few remarks in my remaining couple of minutes. I want to talk about the Schools Active Movement and their role in effectively utilising PE and sport to enhance the lives and development of young people. And I thank the Honourable Member for Worcester for the meeting that we had today with Alan Watkinson, who was a co-founder of the Schools Active Movement, but also runs Sport Impact in Hounslow. And we know that there are a number of serious challenges affecting young people for which physical activity is part of the solution. Childhood obesity, deteriorating mental health, deteriorating physical literacy, not a term that we use enough, and the gap that is growing between affluent and deprived areas in terms of children's physical and mental well-being. Now, the Schools Active Movement, with school sports partnerships and their equivalents, have had huge successes, but have also supported schools, but they are facing significant challenges. They talk about the sector overall having funding through different pots of funding, which is helpful and important, but there's a lack of coherent strategy overall that's significantly impacting the effectiveness of achieving the best outcomes for young people. Local organisations have to spend too much time and resource fighting to access this funding and to ensure that it's spent strategically and effectively. Schools, particularly those without an active school sports partnership, are struggling to know what strategically to spend that funding on. And the lack of coherent strategy and infrastructure and the year-to-year funding announcements is seriously affecting the ability to attract trained staff and to plan ahead. And I had heard one example of somebody who was trained and playing a really important part in local school sports that couldn't, with the cost of living crisis, cope with the lack of certainty and left their role to become a postman. And that's a really, really sad result. And I think just to finally say on some of the impacts that they have in Sport Impact's evaluation of the impact locally, where they support schools to take a strategic approach, they've really built the confidence of teachers to be able to teach sport. And where they've seen more than almost 50% of teachers lacking confidence to teach PE, going to more than 50% being highly confident, and with none lacking confidence that have actually been through their training. So just to finally mention the asks that I've been shared with. One is the urgent need to maintain present infrastructure, and that is protecting the value of those school games organisers and the national network, and confidence about the funding. And secondly, to work together on planning the future, consulting on the updated school sport and activity and action plan, and a central role for a national network like the Schools Active Movement to play their part within an updated school sports strategy. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Hear, hear.